All right, so this has to be one of my favorite stories of all time about a criminal. And truly, make no mistake, this man is a criminal. Carlos Ghosn, former CEO of Nissan. Now, I find this man to be particularly interesting because he was so highly respected as a business mogul. I mean, multiple outlets said that he was the most respected businessman outside of America in 2002 and 2003. He basically single-handedly saved Nissan, Mitsubishi, Renault, which is a electric vehicle company, and he did great work with Michelin, if I didn't mention that already. He was lovingly referred to as Le Cost Killer because he was just able to basically save companies from the brink of bankruptcy by shrinking down the company, selling off assets, and then using that funding to basically clear out debts and then able to rebuild. So, I mean, he was able to take a company and turn it into a phoenix rising back from the ashes. I, I mean, now you almost hate to even make the comparison, but look at in America, who in the early 2000s was considered the genius business mogul, kind of hotshot. Somebody, I mean, this is the Donald Trump, but not the President Donald Trump that people learned to hate. I'm talking about the Apprentice era Donald Trump that, you either love to hate him or you hated how much you loved him. One of those guys. Actually, that might still be true today. One of the other. Point being, Carlos Ghosn was a chairman of the board for Nissan as well as their CEO. At the same time, he was the CEO of Renault, an electric vehicle company. And I believe he was a chairman at Mitsubishi at the time, or at least a board member. Regardless, this dude was the reason why Mitsubishi, Renault, and Nissan had this technical partnership, which still lives on to this day. But Carlos Ghosn, in April of 2017, on April 1st, 2017, steps down as the CEO of Nissan. Now, he retained his position as the board chairman, but it's just kind of funny to do it on April Fool's Day. You can see how everybody reacts, and if you don't like your reaction, you can always come back and say April Fools, right? Does that work for C-level positions in companies? Who knows? Anyway, on November 19th, 2018, he's arrested for underreporting his salary and gross misuse of company assets from Nissan. This was a huge shock, and it was, I believe, the following Monday, November 22nd, that Nissan's board makes the unanimous decision to dismiss Ghosn as the chairman. Now, mind you, he's still on the board of Nissan. He's just no longer the chairman. He's also still the CEO of Renault because the French, I guess, wanted to back him because he saved the company from bankruptcy and got them into this partnership with a motor companies as major as Mitsubishi and Nissan. So Renault keeps him as the CEO for just a couple more months. And then January 2019, they ask him to retire, to which he obliged. You know how that goes. Like, can you believe that though? That they asked him to retire? Like, what? If you've ever worked at like Target or Kohl's and your register comes up $20 short, do you think they ask you to quit? So, hypothetically, what if you stole roughly, let's say, 35 million British pounds? So, $50 million? What if you stole $50 million out of the register at Renault? Do you think that they'd just ask you to retire? If anybody knows anyone who works for Renault, I'd love to know the answer. I, I'd be willing to consider a career change if that's the case. So, while out on bail in March, he's arrested again over new charges from Nissan, a gross misappropriation of funds. Now, in another month, the Nissan shareholders voted him off of the company board entirely. So this was like a 6-month process to get rid of this guy, and it didn't even come from the other members of the board. I'll get into that in a little bit, but I want to tell my favorite story first. So, in late April, he gets bail again, this time on house arrest, only for Renault to discover 11 million euros of questionable expenses made by him before he left. So, he's barely out on bail at the end of April, and by the beginning of June, he's under investigation again. The French authorities had raids on his properties and began investigating his accounts to get to the bottom of this. And now here is really the best part. The reason why this story will never be forgotten, at least not by me, not by this podcast host. Carlos Ghosn, in his penthouse apartment in Japan, decides that he wants an orchestra to play for him. And why not? If it's someone else's money, every day's your birthday. So he has this orchestra come and play, beautiful horns, stringed instruments, and a cello. Now, when the performance is over and the people clear out, Carlos Ghosn is nowhere to be found, having snuck out of his condo, or penthouse suite, whatever you want to call it, in a cello case. He was then carried to a private airfield, which is just what rich people call an airfield, was snuck onto a private jet in a wooden box, or as rich people call them, a jet, and he was flown to Lebanon. Now, Carlos Ghosn, having been a dual citizen of Brazil and Lebanon, could not face extradition, for the Lebanese government has no extradition treaty with Japan. And there he is, still. So he's there writing books about it. In Europe, there's like a TV series about him. This dude, this was like the crime of the century, like a heist. And in some ways, very much literally like a heist. He just got away with it. It's amazing. Now, I just love the story, sneaking out in the cello case and flying to Lebanon, because it's just so unbelievable. I love that we have confirmation of this. The two former U.S. Special Forces veterans that snuck him away, they were caught. They faced charges of financial misconduct and, basically aided and abetting his escape. So it sounds like he either paid them or was supposed to pay these two guys a pretty good sum of money. But then it just gets weirder when you look at the other members of the board that basically, apparently a lot of Nissan's board were treating the monies in the company just as like a piggy bank. So it makes sense why they had such a hard time ousting him from the board, because it if you look into it, it seems like it really affected all of them. I'll go ahead and throw that link up for you guys, but yeah, this article from The Guardian goes into Hiroto Saikawa, the firm's chief executive at the time, who apparently was a pretty big critic of Ghosn's management methods anyway. So maybe Ghosn's way of stealing messed up Hiroto's way of stealing. Who knows? But yeah, it seemed like they knew about it the whole time. So maybe it was just a coup from within the company all along. It does make you wonder, though. Now, I worked for Nissan for a long time. Well, okay, that's not fair to say. I worked for Nissan for a little bit. Does that feel like a $30,000 or $35,000 sedan to you when you drive it? Does the Armada feel like an $85,000 SUV? Yeah, where did all that money come from? Did it have anything to do with Nissan's partnership with Global Lending Services to pass through bad credit applications to Santander Bank? Because, if you apply for a loan through NMAC so you can get those sweet, sweet $5,000 rebates on that $30,000 Altima, tells you about what the car is worth when they can offer $5,000 in rebates on it, doesn't it? But no, when that loan automatically gets passed through a bank that specializes in subprime, to me that throws up some red flags, because I always thought that the whole point of a subprime bank or subprime lending was that you kind of shuffled those in the deck with good loans. And those subprime loans were like, you were mitigating the risk of those against the security of your good loans. So the fact that Santander can specialize in these subprime loans, but then just have scandal after scandal, year after year, of fraudsters stealing $200,000-$300,000 worth of British pounds, just right out of the accounts. It's like a bank robbery with no gun. Or at the same time, you've got $550 million settlement that Santander pays over predatory auto loans. It just makes you wonder how deep the corruption really goes. How far into the roots has the rot grown? But anyway, I'm not here to discuss all that. I just wanted to tell you a great story. This is Common Criminal Podcast. Thanks for listening.